So I'm going to talk about Tai Lopez on this video. Now, what I'm not going to do is one of those videos like, is Tai Lopez a scam? There's many videos that have looked at that and really saw through, some would say, some of his claims. So some videos have claimed to look through his past, and he actually hasn't done as much in business maybe as he's insinuated online, and he's made most of his money from what he does online. But that's beyond the point. And really what I'm going to say on this video is, regardless of whether somebody likes Tai Lopez or not, actually his success shows some very important business concepts. Now, number one, it shows that being famous and being known is much more important than necessarily having the best product or service. Now, what do I mean by that? If you're known by hundreds of millions of people around the world, even if you have the worst product in the world or the best product in the world, of course, you're going to have great traction. Now, of course, long term, somebody who has a great product or a great service is going to actually have even more traction than somebody who has a substandard product or service. Nevertheless, though, there's a big world out there, and let's face it, Tai Lopez has had loads of bad reviews online. You can just Google his name saying, oh, I've been scammed by this course, it wasn't worth it, and all this kind of thing. But that's irrelevant, because what he knows is it's a numbers game, right? In a world where there's like 8 billion people, you only have to have a small number of huge fans to actually make it worth it. And also, this leads me on to another point, and that's that a lot of people out there in business, they overestimate whether they have a reputation or not. Now, what do I mean by that? If you're, for example, HSBC or a company like Apple, you have a reputation. It could be good, it could be bad. Some people might like you, some people don't. For most people in businesses, they don't even have a reputation. They're not even that important to warrant a reputation. So what a lot of people do in business is they are always terrified of having a few bad reviews or some people not liking them. But the reality is, if you're known by, say, 500 million people, even if 80% of those people hate you, you're going to get more traction than if you're just known amongst your local community, 1,000 or 2,000 people, and everybody loves you. A lot of people kind of kid themselves and say, oh yeah, but in the long term, if he's getting loads of bad reviews online, that's going to affect him. But not really. It hasn't affected him up until now. And in reality, today's scandal is tomorrow's fish and chip paper. In other words, it comes and goes. If you think about some of the scandals around the world in the last 10 years, I'm not just talking about Tai Lopez, but think about things like the scandal involving Rupert Murdoch. 10 years ago, his organization did some hacking. Similar time, Edward Snowden and the NSA. If you go back and read a newspaper from 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, even 6 months ago, you'll notice a trend. There's a brief period where people get crazy and mad and whatever, but then people kind of forget about it. Or go on a Wikipedia page of almost any famous celebrity, and it'll be like 1.1 is early life, 1.2 education, 1.3 and then 1.4 scandal or controversy, and you'll think, oh, I forgot about that. Really? Oh yeah, David Beckham had an affair 17 years ago. Oh, I forgot about that. So that the reality is, these things come and go. So there's all these people online saying, oh, I hate this guy. I click on his ads because I just want to cost him money because I feel like he ripped me off on the course. But the reality is, though, regardless of whether you think he's great or bad, if he's a scam or if he's the best thing since sliced bread, he does understand some very simple business concepts that if you get your name out there, you're going to get some traction. So in comparison, the big mistake a lot of people make is they wait for things to be perfect before they release things. So another great example I'll give is Grant Cardone. He did a best-selling book which had spelling errors and all these kind of things, grammatical errors. And you might say, well, that's not perfect, but it's much better than putting it out there 2 years later. Production always comes before perfection. And likewise, a lot of people are saying, oh, well, his courses are not that good. Some of them have spelling mistakes or whatever. But at the end of the day, he still sells them. He still gets some traction. So I think for even people who are looking to go down or do business in a very different way to Tai Lopez. There are always things you can understand from somebody who's getting some kind of success. I was reading a very good piece, and it was also linked to a video, and he made a very good point. I forgot his name, the guy who was reviewing Tai Lopez, and he said this: whatever you think about him, unless your personal net wealth is above his net wealth, which is about 100 million, you shouldn't moralize about him. In other words, if you're Warren Buffett or Bill Gates or whatever, obviously if you come out and criticize this guy who's worth 100 million, you could say, well, fair enough, they've done it in a certain way, and of course you can't argue against those guys. But if you've got somebody who's broke, for example, even someone who's doing very well but they're not worth 100 million, and they're criticizing somebody who's worth so much money, it kind of leads me on to something. And that's that a lot of people, they kind of spend their time moralizing about business rather than actually doing something. There's a great quote that I've used before from Jack Bogle, who talks about the stock market, and he talks about speculators speculating on what other speculators are speculating about. And what I find in businesses, there's a lot of moralistic people who moralize about what other moralistic people are moralizing about. And that's always a key mistake, because no matter how good or how bad your services are, the key thing is always getting your name out there first, getting traction first. And I think whatever you think about Tai Lopez, he does understand those basic points. And he does understand that regardless of online reviews, regardless of scandals, if he gets more traction, more people on his website, more people are watching him, even if there's more haters, he's going to make more money. Whereas in comparison, if there are less people on his website, more lovers, but the overall numbers are going down, he's going to make less money. So no matter what product or service you are, offering, and regardless whether you like him or not, you can learn something from that.